The night was quiet until the crunch of tires on gravel shattered the calm. 3 trucks rolled up outside my property, their headlights slicing through the dark like hunting blades. I knew the HOA had been pushing me for months to sign their ridiculous papers. But this was different. This was war. Doors slammed, shadows moved, and I saw them. 3 men I didn't recognize, each with that cocky swagger that only comes when someone promises them backup. They didn't know about Max, my trained K9 waiting by the porch, or the fact that I'd already chambered a round in the shotgun leaning against my doorframe. And they sure as hell didn't know the sheriff was only a call away, tired of their games, and ready to act. The first knock wasn't even a knock. It was a pounding, heavy and deliberate, rattling the frame of my door in the stillness of a country night. Max, my German shepherd, was already on his feet, ears pricked, teeth barely visible in the faint glow of the porch light. I moved silently from my chair, shotgun resting against my forearm, heart steady but alert. This wasn't the first time the HOA had tried to push me into their little kingdom of rules and dues. But this was the first time they sent muscle. I opened the door halfway, just enough to see the 3 silhouettes standing on my gravel driveway, their trucks idle behind them, exhaust curling in the cold air. The one in front, a broad-shouldered man with a leather vest and a smug grin, stepped closer without invitation. "Evening," he said, voice slick with false courtesy. "We've been sent by the association. Thought we'd have ourselves a friendly talk." Max growled, a low, rumbling warning. I rested my hand lightly on his collar. "Friendly talks don't start with pounding on someone's door at 9 at night," I replied. "State your business and make it quick." The second man, taller, with a bald cap pulled low, spat onto the gravel. "You've been ignoring the notices, the fees, the signatures. The HOA doesn't take kindly to freeloaders thinking they're above the community." Freeloaders. The word made my jaw tighten. I bought this land fair and square, acres outside their precious gate. Never signed a thing, never agreed to their bylaws. I'd told them as much 3 times already. "I'm not part of your HOA," I said evenly. "I've got the paperwork to prove it. You want to test it, bring a lawyer, not a posse." The third man, who'd been silent until now, shifted his weight, a subtle move that made his jacket lift just enough for me to see the bulge on his hip. Not a phone, not a wallet. Max caught it too. His hackles rose. Leather vest smirked. "See, that's the thing. You've made this real complicated for a lot of folks. Roads, snowplow, and maintenance. It's all communal out here. We're here to help you make the right decision before things get inconvenient." "Inconvenient?" I echoed. "That a threat?" He spread his hands, mock innocence. "Just saying, nobody likes a neighbor who doesn't pull their weight." The cold wind bit through my shirt, but my blood was hot. I'd dealt with bullies before, corporate ones, petty bureaucratic ones. But these men had that quiet arrogance of people who think the law bends for them. I took a step out onto the porch. Max pressed tight against my leg. "You boys done?" I asked, voice flat. "Because this is private property, and unless you've got a warrant or a legal summons, you're trespassing." For a moment, silence. Then Ball-Cap chuckled. "Hear that? He thinks a dog and a pump action make him untouchable." I let my thumb rest on the safety, just enough of the click to carry in the crisp air. All 3 pairs of eyes flicked down to the barrel angled low, but ready. "I don't want trouble," I said, calm as a still pond. "But I won't be bullied. Last warning. Off my property." Leather vest grin slipped, replaced by something meaner. He leaned in slightly, as if proximity gave him power. "You think that much gonna scare us off? HOA's got ways of making life hell for holdouts like you. You like your driveway plowed this winter? You like getting mail delivered? Trash picked up? Think again." That was their game. Cut off the essentials. Starve you into submission. I'd heard stories from neighbors who caved after a few weeks of fines and harassment. But I wasn't them. I'd grown up on a ranch where winters bit hard and men worked harder. I had a generator, a well, and enough grit to outlast their tactics. Max let out a sharp bark, startling them back a half step. That bark was his way of asking, "Now?" "Not yet." I slowly reached into my pocket, not for a weapon, but for my phone. You know Sheriff Daniels? I asked. Good man. Knows the law. Knows about the fake notices you slipped in my mailbox last month. The third man swore under his breath. Leather Vest's eyes narrowed. You calling him now? I tapped the screen, speaker on. The dial tone filled the air, followed by a click and the sheriff's gravelly voice. Daniels. Sheriff. I said loud enough for them to hear. I got 3 HOA enforcers on my porch after dark, refusing to leave. Thought you might want to know. A pause, then the sheriff's voice sharpened. Stay inside. Lock the door. I'm 10 minutes out. One of the men muttered something I didn't catch, but the tension shifted. Trucks still idling, the smell of exhaust mixing with cold pine. They weren't expecting resistance. They were expecting fear. Leather Vest stepped back, gesturing to his men. This isn't over, he hissed. You just made a mistake. Bring a lawyer next time, I said, and closed the door. But I didn't put the shotgun down. I stood by the window, watching their taillights fade down the long drive, Max pacing beside me like a coiled spring. 10 minutes later, red and blue washed over the trees as Sheriff Daniels' cruiser rolled up. He stepped out, big frame wrapped in a tan coat, eyes scanning the dark. You all right? He asked when I opened the door again. For now, I said, but they'll be back. He nodded grimly. I've had complaints about them trying this with other holdouts. But tonight, they cross a line. Intimidation, trespassing. I can work with that. Max sniffed the sheriff's boots, tail stiff. Daniels reached down to scratch his ears. Good boy. Bet you gave him a heart attack. I managed a tight smile, but my mind was already racing. This wasn't just about me signing papers anymore. This was about control. They'd tested my resolve tonight, and they'd learned I wasn't one of their easy targets. The sheriff made a few notes, promised to patrol the area for the next week. But as his taillights disappeared, I knew this wasn't over. HOA money runs deep, and men like Leather Vest don't like losing. I locked every door, checked every window, loaded every round. Max curled up by the door, head resting on his paws, eyes never closing fully. Some battles start with noise and fists. Others start with quiet papers and fake smiles. Tonight, mine started with both. And I had a feeling the next round wouldn't be at my doorstep. It would be something bigger, louder, and a whole lot meaner. The next morning broke cold and gray, a low mist rolling over the fields like nature's warning. Max was already at the window before I even sipped my coffee, ears twitching at every rustle. The quiet was heavy, unnatural, like the air just before a storm. I checked the driveway. Empty. No trucks, no thugs. But I knew silence didn't mean safety. It meant planning. By mid-morning, a neighbor stopped by, an older man named Grant who lived 2 properties over. He leaned on his rusted pickup, hat in hand, eyes darting nervously toward the road. Heard what happened last night, he said, voice low. They were at my place 2 weeks ago. Broke my mailbox when I told them to leave. I clenched my jaw. They won't stop with me. Not if the HOA keeps sending them. Grant shook his head. Most folks just sign the papers to avoid trouble. Pay the fees. Keep quiet. But you standing up, that's going to stir the pot. Good. I said, though a part of me felt the weight of those words. Standing up meant becoming a target. By noon, Sheriff Daniels rolled back down my drive, his cruiser crunching the gravel. He stepped out, jaw set like a man who'd seen this play out too many times. Got their plates, he said without preamble. One's got priors, trespassing, intimidation, even a concealed weapon charge that got dropped last year. Guess who posted his bail? HOA chairwoman, Karen Willard. Karen. I'd seen her once, at a distant community meeting I'd been dragged into months ago. Perfect hair, sharper smile, the kind of person who thought control was the same as care. The kind of person who sent thugs to do her bidding when paperwork failed. Daniels adjusted his belt. I've warned them off, but I can't post a deputy here every night. You got cameras? I nodded. And a dog that doesn't miss a thing. He gave a tight smile. Keep him running. And keep that shotgun legal. That night, I didn't bother turning the lights off. Max stayed restless. his claws clicking on the hardwood as he patrolled each window like a soldier on rotation. Midnight came and went. At 1:30, the sound came, faint at first, then clearer. Tires on gravel. More than one vehicle. I stood, heart steady but pulse quick, and grabbed a shotgun. Outside, 2 trucks this time, engines off, lights dark. Figures moved between them, low and fast, thinking the darkness gave them cover. Max growled, deep and rolling. I whispered command, stay. This time, I didn't wait for a knock. I flicked the porch light on, stepped out with the shotgun low but visible. Private property. I called, last chance to turn around. A voice answered, rough and mocking. You think you can hide behind a dog and a phone call? HOA owns this road, old man. I own my land. I shot back, and I'll defend it. One of them started toward me, something glinting in his hand. That was enough. Max lunged off the porch like a bullet, teeth flashing white in the moonlight. The man yelped, stumbled back, tripping over the gravel as Max held his arm in a vice grip, not breaking skin yet, just holding, growling low. Call him off, another shouted. Back off my property. I barked, chambering around with sharp, echoing click that froze them where they stood. Max! Heel! The dog released and returned to my side, teeth bared, hackles high. That's when I saw the flash of blue lights down the road, cutting through the trees like salvation. Sheriff Daniels again, this time with backup. The truck started to roll, but a cruiser blocked their exit. Doors slammed, voices barked. Hands where I can see them. Now! The men froze, caught between their orders and the law. Karen herself wasn't there, but her stink was all over it. Daniels walked up, flashlight in one hand, eyes on me. You all right? Better than them, I said, nodding toward a man still nursing his arm. Daniels turned his light on the group. You 3 are done. Trespassing, menacing, attempted assault. You want to play enforcers? Now you can explain it to a judge. They muttered curses under their breath, but the handcuffs clicked just the same. One of them, leather vest, turned his head and spat toward my porch. This ain't over, farmer boy. Karen's gonna bury you in paperwork, in fines, in hell itself. I stepped closer, eyes locked on his. Tell her to bring a shovel. She'll need it. By the time the trucks were towed and the men hauled off, dawn was breaking, pale light spilling over the pines. Daniels lingered, hat in his hands. This could go legal real fast, he said. They'll try to twist the law, claim roads, easements, whatever they can. But last night and tonight, that's enough to put them under a spotlight. I'm not leaving, I said, and I'm not signing. He nodded slowly. Then brace yourself. Folks like her, they don't fight fair. Over the next week, letters piled in my mailbox. Fines for imaginary infractions, demands to attend emergency meetings, threats of liens that had no legal standing. I documented every one, filed them with the county clerk, sent copies to the sheriff's office. Max stayed vigilant, his growl now a regular part of the night. Then on the 7th day, a black SUV pulled into my drive in broad daylight. Karen Willard stepped out, heels crunching on gravel, sunglasses glinting. No entourage, no thugs, just her and that poisonous smile. Mr. Hale, she said sweetly, you've made quite the mess. I stood on the porch, arms crossed. I didn't send men with weapons to your house, ma'am. Her smile didn't falter. They were simply trying to expedite community harmony. By threatening my life? She shrugged. You could have avoided all this with a signature and a modest fee. I took a step forward, Max at my heel. You want harmony? Stop sending criminals to do your bidding. Her eyes hardened. You're one man against a board of 15, backed by lawyers and years of precedent. Do you really think the sheriff can protect you forever? I didn't answer with words. I raised my phone, camera rolling. Say that again, I said, for the county records. She blinked, lips pressing thin, then turned without another word and climbed back into her SUV. Gravel spat from her tires as she left. Weeks passed, each one bringing some new trick. A notice on my gate, a fake citation taped to my truck, Even a stranger pretending to be a surveyor trying to take pictures of my well. But I stood my ground, and so did Max Sheriff Daniels build his case. Neighbors began whispering, and slowly their grip loosened. The HOA board fractured. 2 members resigning after the arrests made the local news. And Karen? She vanished from the meetings for a while, then returned, quieter, less certain. The fines stopped coming. The thugs didn't return. It wasn't a victory parade. It was a slow, grinding standoff, one I'd fight again if I had to, because some lines aren't meant to be crossed. Not with trucks, not with threats, and sure as hell not with men who think fear is a contract. Max lay by the porch one evening, sun setting over the fields, his eyes soft for the first time in weeks. I scratched his ears, the shotgun resting inside the door. "Good boy," I murmured. We kept our home. The wind rustled the trees, carrying the sound of a distant road. Quiet again, finally. Not because they gave me permission, because I never asked. If this story fired you up, imagine what's coming next. Don't just scroll away. Hit that like button. Share it with someone who loves a good fight for justice. And subscribe to QAStories for more real, raw, and powerful tales that hit hard and stick with you. Your support keeps these stories alive, so join the journey.